Let me paint you a picture. Imagine an old man, a leader who has become a legend, standing on a ridge looking out over a land he'll never set foot in. Spread out before him is a new generation, the kids and grandkids of the people he led out of bondage. This is Moses, and this is it. This is his final, urgent plea. He knows the clock is ticking, and this is his last shot to pour a lifetime of wisdom into them, to burn one final, critical lesson into their hearts.
You see, everything he's about to say, every command, every warning, it all boils down to one single, powerful idea. Remember. And this isn't about, just memorizing some facts for a quiz. This is a passionate, desperate plea, not to let the most important, miraculous, and frankly terrifying moments of your life just fade away. It's all about clinging to the truth of what you have seen with your own two eyes.
So he kicks things off with the absolute basics. In verse 1, he lays out this incredibly simple equation. Now, O Israel, listen, that you may live. It's that direct. Listening equals life. Then in verse 2, he gets very specific. I want you to picture God's law as this perfect, sealed document. He says, you shall not add to the word nor take from it. Think about it like a prescription for a life-saving medicine. If you add a little something extra or decide to leave one ingredient out, well, that could be fatal, right? This isn't a suggestion box. This is the blueprint for their very survival.
Now Moses, he's smart. He doesn't just talk theory. He uses their own recent memory as Exhibit A. In verse 3, he says, your eyes have seen what the Lord did at Baal Peor. And they all knew exactly what he was talking about. That disaster, where some of their own people got tangled up in idol worship and were just wiped out. But then in verse 4, Moses gestures to the crowd right in front of him and says, but you who held fast to the Lord your God are alive today, every one of you. I mean, the contrast could not be more vivid. Disloyalty, that's a graveyard. Loyalty, that's standing right here, taking a breath. Okay, so why are these laws such a big deal? Moses starts laying out his case. In verse 5, he reminds them, hey, this isn't just my opinion, this is from God. And from there, he explains how these laws are actually their secret weapon. This law will become their wisdom on the world stage. Other nations will look at them and say, wow, that nation is seriously wise and has it all figured out. He then throws down a challenge in verses 7 and 8. What other nation has a God that's so close to them? Who else has laws that are this good, this right? He's reframing obedience. It's not a burden. It's their greatest asset.
And then the command gets intensely personal. In verse 9, he tells them, only take care and keep your soul diligently. Imagine you're a bodyguard, but your mission is to protect your own soul from the hitman of forgetfulness. And what's the one memory you have to protect at all costs? Verse 10 makes it crystal clear. The day you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, that moment, the divine encounter. And then he adds the mission-critical next step. You have to teach them to your children and your grandchildren. See, this memory isn't just a personal souvenir. It's a family heirloom, a fire you have to pass from one generation to the next.
Moses then basically makes them relive that day. He wants them to feel the ground shake all over again. Verse 11 paints this incredible, terrifying scene, a mountain on fire, reaching into the sky, surrounded by darkness, clouds, and deep gloom. And then, verse 12 gives us the most important detail of the entire chapter. The Lord spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the sound of the words, but saw no form. You only heard a voice. Think about that. All that power, all that raw presence, but nothing you could possibly draw a picture of. And that, he says in verses 13 and 14, is where you got the covenant, the 10 Commandments.
And that right there, that is the brilliant, simple logic behind the Bible's #1 rule against idolatry. The argument is almost devastatingly simple. Because you did not see a form in the fire, you must never, ever try to make one.
And this brings us to a really crucial point. Verse 15 just hammers it home again. Therefore, watch yourselves very carefully, since you saw no form. He is not going to let them forget this. And why is it so important? Well, verse 16 tells us exactly why. It's to stop them from making a carved image in the form of a male or a female. Think about it. To sculpt some perfect human statue and then bow down to it, that's taking the infinite, unseen creator and shrinking him down to something we can see and control. God isn't just some cosmic man or woman.
And the warning doesn't just stop with people. Oh no, it expands to the entire animal kingdom. Verse 17 says, no images of any powerful beast that walks the earth or any bird that soars in the sky. Verse 18 keeps going, no images of anything that creeps on the ground or any fish that swims in the sea. He is systematically tearing down the idol factory of the ancient world, saying every single category of created things is completely off limits for worship.
Moses then lifts their gaze even higher, all the way to the heavens. In verse 19, he warns them, "And beware lest you raise your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, you be drawn away and bow down to them." I mean, these were the ultimate gods of the powerful empires around them, but Moses just completely demotes them. He explains that God has assigned these celestial bodies to all the other peoples. They're like a beautiful universal clock and calendar for everyone. They are brilliant servants, not divine masters.
And this slide really nails the sharp contrast he draws in verse 20. While the rest of the world has the stars, Moses says, "But the Lord has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt." An iron furnace, just picture that. A place of unbearable heat and crushing pressure, designed to burn away impurities and purify metal. That's what their slavery was. God didn't just rescue them, He forged them in that fire to become a people of His own inheritance. They are His personal, prized possession.
Now, to show them just how serious God is about all this, Moses makes it painfully personal. In verse 21, he says, "The Lord was angry with me because of you." He reminds them that his own failure was directly tied to their rebellion. And the consequence? He lays it bare in verse 22. "For I must die in this land, I must not go over the Jordan." His own impending death, right there on the border of their dream, serves as the ultimate warning. I mean, if their leader faces this for his mistake, what hope do they have if they deliberately turn their backs?
And this brings the whole warning to its terrifying peak. Verse 23 is this final, urgent cry, "Take care, lest you forget the covenant." And verse 24 gives the reason why, in one of the most powerful and frankly scary descriptions of God in the entire Bible. "For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God." This isn't some cozy campfire you can just trifle with. No, this is a God who is intensely pure, a fire that burns away everything that's not real, and He is fiercely, passionately committed to His people. He will not tolerate any rivals for their affection.
And then, Moses' voice seems to change. He's not just a lawgiver anymore, he's stepping into the role of a prophet. He looks far, far down the corridor of their future and begins to map out the tragic but ultimately hopeful journey that's waiting for them, if they choose to forget. He basically lays out their entire national story before it even happens. In verses 25 and 26, he predicts that once they get comfortable in the land, they'll act corruptly, they'll make idols, and because of that, they'll soon utterly perish. So what happens next? Verses 27 and 28. Exile. "The Lord will scatter you among the peoples," and they'll end up serving the very same kind of lifeless, man-made gods he just warned them about. But then comes the turning point. Verse 29 offers this incredible ray of hope. "From that dark place, you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him." And verses 30 and 31 tell us why. "For the Lord your God is a merciful God. He will not leave you or destroy you or forget the covenant." Even when they break the deal, God's promise holds true. All right, to seal the deal, Moses shifts his tone again. Now, he's like a cosmic prosecutor. He calls all of creation and all of human history to the witness stand to testify to one simple, undeniable truth. There is no God like their God. The first question he asks in verse 32 is just breathtaking in its scale. He says, "For ask now of the days that are past, since the day that God created man on the earth, and ask from one end of heaven to the other whether such a great thing as this has ever been known." He's basically throwing down a challenge to the entire human story. Has anyone, anywhere, at any time, ever seen anything that even comes close to this? Then he gets more specific in verse 33, zooming in on their unique, frankly impossible experience at that fiery mountain. "Did any people ever hear the voice of God speaking out of the midst of the fire as you have heard and still live?" In the ancient world, it was understood that if you saw or heard a god directly, you were toast. You were instantly dead. The fact that they survived was, in itself, a mind-blowing miracle. And the final question in verse 34, well, it's the knockout punch. "Or has any god ever attempted to go and take a nation for himself from the midst of another nation, by trials, by signs, by wonders, and by war?" He just lists off the whole epic saga of the Exodus. No other god in any other story had ever even tried to do something this audacious, literally ripping a new nation right out of the heart of a superpower empire.
So after laying out all the evidence, Moses delivers the closing argument. Verse 35 states the entire purpose. To you it was shown that you might know that the Lord is God. There is no other besides him. Verses 36 through 38 just restate the proof. They heard the voice, they experienced the love, they saw the exodus. And it all builds to this one undeniable conclusion in verse 39. Know therefore today that the Lord is God in heaven above and on the earth beneath. There is no other. It's a declaration of total exclusive sovereignty. And the only logical response? Verse 40. Therefore you shall keep his statutes.
But Moses doesn't just end with a great speech. You know, a great leader understands that words are nothing without action. So right then and there, he shows them exactly what it means to live out the very law he just spent all this time teaching.
And he does not waste a second. In verses 41 through 43, Moses gets right to work. He sets apart 3 specific cities, Bezer, Ramoth, and Golan, to be cities of refuge. Now, this was a specific law God had given to provide both justice and mercy for someone who accidentally killed another person. He is literally carving the law into the map, showing them this isn't some abstract philosophy class. This is how you actually build a just and compassionate society from the ground up.
Finally, the chapter wraps up by anchoring this entire epic speech in a specific time and a specific place. Verses 44 through 49 are kind of like the dateline at the top of a historic document. It all happened after they left Egypt and after the huge military victories over those 2 kings on the east side of the Jordan River. This grounds the whole thing in reality. This isn't a fairy tale, it's history.
So Moses has made his case. He's used logic, he's used history, personal pain, and prophecy to deliver this one last desperate plea. He has laid out 2 paths before them, one built on remembering and the other on forgetting. And the question he left hanging in the air for them is the same one that echoes all the way down to us today. Will you remember or will you forget?